It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when it all started. My husband, Daniel, was lounging on the couch, sipping his usual black coffee, flipping through channels. I was in the kitchen preparing lunch, not thinking twice about what was playing on the TV. We were just enjoying a typical, peaceful day. Nothing felt out of place until it did. He stopped on a news channel. I heard the tone of the anchors shift suddenly, from calm to urgent. Something in their voices made me pause. I looked over to Daniel and saw him staring at the screen, his face blank, coffee forgotten in his hand. "Are you okay?" I asked, stepping closer. He didn't respond. His eyes were locked onto the television, completely still. That was when I realized something was very wrong. The screen showed footage from a war zone somewhere overseas. The images were raw, bombings, terrified civilians running for cover, homes crumbling into dust. It wasn't unusual for the news to show distressing scenes, but this one hit Daniel like a truck. I saw his hands start to tremble. I rushed to turn the TV off, but he stopped me. "Leave it," he whispered, his voice cracking. His eyes were watering, his breathing shallow. That's when I remembered. Daniel had served years ago, during a military operation in that exact region. He never talked much about his time in the army. When I asked, he would simply say, "It's all behind me now." But now I realized it wasn't. It had never been behind him. He had just buried it deep, pretending it didn't exist. That footage, just a few minutes long, had opened something inside him that he had fought for years to keep shut. He stood up abruptly and walked into our bedroom, closing the door behind him. I didn't follow immediately. I gave him space. Maybe that was a mistake. Hours passed, and I found him sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. His eyes were red, his hands clasped tightly. I sat next to him and gently touched his arm. "Do you want to talk about it?" I asked. He looked at me with a pain I had never seen before. "It's the same village," he said finally. "The same one from back then. I thought it was gone. I thought it was over." He broke down. I held him as he sobbed. Deep, broken sobs that shook his whole body. He hadn't cried like that since his mother died. Over the next few days, Daniel changed. He became quiet, withdrawn. He barely ate. He didn't sleep much. When he did, he'd wake up screaming, drenched in sweat. The nightmares were relentless, each one dragging him deeper into a place I couldn't reach. I urged him to see someone, a therapist, anyone. At first he refused. "I'm not weak," he said, his voice full of shame. "I just need to get through this." But he wasn't getting through it. He was sinking. Eventually he agreed to talk to a counselor, but only once. He came back even more shaken. "I can't do this," he said. "Talking about it just makes it worse." So he stopped. And he shut me out too. He stopped going to work, stopped returning calls from friends. He would sit for hours, staring at the wall, lost in memories I couldn't see. The Daniel I knew, strong, funny, kind, was disappearing before my eyes. There were times I wondered if I should show him the video again, let him face it head on. But the first time had shattered him. I was terrified a second time might break him completely. I did what I could. I stayed close. I cooked, even though he barely touched the food. I talked, even though he rarely answered. I kissed his forehead at night and held him through the nightmares, whispering, "You're safe now." But it never seemed to reach him. Some days he would seem almost normal. He'd smile faintly, help with chores, even crack a joke. But it never lasted. Something would trigger him. A sound, a word, a smell, and he'd spiral all over again. I found him once sitting in the dark garage, holding an old army photo in one hand, a half-empty bottle of whiskey in the other. "They didn't make it," he whispered. "That village. We tried to protect them. We failed." That's when I understood. The video wasn't just about memories. It was about guilt. Survivor's guilt. The weight of promises broken and people lost. And he had carried that burden in silence for so long. I didn't know how to help him carry it. I wasn't trained. I was just his wife. But I loved him more than anything. So I kept trying. I made calls, found a veterans support group, even convinced one of his old army friends to visit. Slowly, painfully, Daniel began to open up. He started attending the support group once a week. He began writing in a journal, something the counselor had once recommended. He still struggled, but he was trying. That mattered. Even now, a year later, he's not the same. The video changed him. Or maybe it just revealed the damage he had been hiding all along. Either way, something inside him broke that day, and I don't think it'll ever fully heal. He smiles less, talks less, but when he does, there's honesty in his voice that wasn't there before. He's more vulnerable now, more real, and though it hurts to see him like this, I also see his strength in new ways. Some nights he still wakes up crying, but now he lets me hold him. Now he doesn't hide it, and that, in its own way, is a small kind of healing. We don't watch the news anymore, and I never ask him to talk about the past. If he wants to, he will, but I sit beside him, always ready to listen. The man I married is still here. Changed, yes. Hurt, yes, but here, and I'll be here too, for as long as he needs me. Because love doesn't walk away when it gets hard. It stays, even when the person you love feels like a stranger. Especially then, and while the video broke something inside him, it also opened a path to healing, one painful, honest step at a time.